there are a couple of links above. Chris is hosting a space tomorrow. We talk Film 3 stuff, talk AI, filmmaking, and whatever else. Oh yeah, actually tomorrow is the Vabble interview as well too, so that'll be cool. And then the recording from the last session is up above as well for people that like podcasts. That is available for you to listen to at your listening pleasure. This session is also being recorded, and I will put it out into the world the Monday before the next one. Yeah, working on a handful of editorial pieces right now. Chris got access to one of them, which was based on a video that I put out earlier this year. So kind of going in an opposite direction compared to normal, which, you know, is a good challenge, I feel like. And I am working on getting that out next month. Hopefully it'll get in shape enough to put it out. Maybe like the first 2 weeks of August. That's kind of my goal.
So is that it's still current, the one that I was reading?
Yeah, I haven't made any changes to it. If you have notes, leave them on the document, and then I'll.
I know. I was just reading through it, and that UI is so terrible.
No, it isn't.
I was like, "What?"
It's not at all. It's brainless.
Yes, it is. When you use it on a phone.
Yeah, well, don't do that.
It's a great thing. Doctor, it hurts when I do this. Stop doing that.
Yeah, everything's terrible on a phone.
I know, but
it's bad on the phone. Really? Is it? Are you doing it on the web, or do you have the actual app?
Good point.
Because it's
because
also,
I don't have the actual app. I don't use Dropbox. That's the reason why. I fucking, me and them had a battle, and they won.
I lost. Yeah.
You know? So
yeah, no, the paper app is actually pretty good on iOS at least, and I do use it with some frequency. I would say that's like my second most used writing app in general. So I do everything in Notes, and then bring it over to Dropbox. And then like lastly would be, what is that called? Pages, I guess. That's the word processor on Mac OS. So that's basically, all the word processing programs that I use. Notes, because it's quick and easy, distributes across all of the platform or devices. Let me say it that way. Devices that I use regularly. And then I'll bring Ricky up here. And then Dropbox, because it does the same, but it allows me to give access to folks like yourself to check out manuscripts while they're still in process. And then the last one, Pages I use for actual layout for books, like on KDP and, whatever else that I need to turn into a PDF in general. I'm sorry to people listening to me right now. My sinuses have been bothering me the last day, I guess. I don't know, I kind of passed out yesterday evening, and my nose, like a sinus against my nose, has just been like hurting for the last day. So I'm not at 100%, but I'm making it. I am living.
Yeah, you're going for it, bro. That's good for you. That's tough. I have that every morning when I get up. I go to my couch, I sit down on my couch, and then my sinuses decide to implode because all the dogwood that's in my area, it just comes through this window, and this couch just like sucks it in and holds it tightly, waiting for when I approach, and then it attacks me like the Predator attacked fucking Arnold in the jungle. It's terrible.
I think it has to do with the weather pattern that kind of came up from the south here, and then kind of caused some storms. So it just kind of changed the pressure and everything in the area. And I took some zinc, which has kind of seemed to fend it off. I do recommend keep zinc handy. That's a real I don't know what a good word for it would be, but
lifesaver.
Yeah, it is like, man, just whenever you feel like you're starting to get a little bit of like a head cold or something, just taking one of those usually like keeps it at bay. And I'll do that for like 2 or 3 days. Like I'll probably take another one this evening later on, and then it'll probably go away once the weather changes again and warms up, and then I'll be fine. But Ricky, what are you doing? What are you working on? You got a space tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, I do. Thanks for having me today. So I just wrote a chapter. I wrote chapter 20 of Wargate, just throwing down chapter after chapter every
Crushing
other
it.
day or so. Yeah, it's great, man. Having a blast with that. Hoping to do some reads tonight if MJ has her space.
Ricky, if you want to read something that you worked on, you're more than welcome to.
Well, since you invited, I did, like I said, I did just sling a fresh chapter. I mean, it's a raw 0 draft, so I haven't even really looked at it that much. But yeah, I could read something. So this is, I'll read this one because it's far off. I'm not going to get to read it again for a while. This is chapter 21. It's plot B. This is not the main party. This is the supporting, one of the supporting threads.
Sure.
No one who sailed the seas that day could ignore their shock. Above the vast, multi-mile-long pyramid in the pyramid zone, the storm had dissipated. Now I should put the eternal storm had dissipated. Even miles away from the colossal base, rising from the sea, all one could see was a shiny wall reaching up and away. Normally the storm obscured the mountainous structure at the halfway point. Awe visited those who sailed those waters since youth, seeing the capstone among wisps far above. If that were all, it would have been more than enough. There were 2 capstones there at the moment, one pointed up and another floating just above it, inverted, the latter belonging to another, smaller structure of the same shape, hanging above a smaller version of the one below. Sailors muttered or exclaimed things like, "Would you look at that?" Or, "Well, I'll be," or, "We are going to die." The crew aboard Empress Demra's sea ship was locked in a stunned silence, projecting wild-eyed wonder at the scene, something they knew they had never seen before and would likely never see again. Likewise, they viewed the Golden Woman as an aspect of fear and power. Laishami promised them and informed the whole armada that she would be summoning a starship, as she called it, and this could be nothing else. Having proven herself, they doubled the respect shown to her, and everyone else stood far off, believing that she was a sorceress of some power capable of almost any act of domination. Knowing that she and Empress Demra sought to wake the sleeping gods, there were few who would contest them for even the smallest thing. Demra was empress of the old empire, but the Golden Woman served the gods, manifested strangeness, and had the full support of the empress. Together, Empress Demra and Laishami, the Golden Woman, stood near the helm, speaking with Admiral Skulgonkai, an elder seaman who held command of the Wendorian Imperium's fleet. His harness and cloak were composed of leather, the helm fine star metal. He was armed with a fabulous blade, having one eye lost during a battle in his youth. With tan flesh and a yellow-white beard kept short, the Admiral had been on deck since dawn when the report of these oddities first found him. A cabin boy woke him, nearly getting cuffed for what the Admiral took to be some kind of jape. Having emerged to see such strange heavenly signs, he ordered the boy to get rum for himself and the command staff as they assembled to weigh this awesome turn of events. "We're all ready for whatever comes, great lady." He bowed in humble servitude to them both, having a touch of fear in his eyes that kept them downcast. The armada is fully assembled and at your disposal. We'll be ready, come what may. Empress Demra smiled brightly, feeling that her day in the sun was finally here. Nothing would be denied her, not even the stars above. Vengeance against Sir Zohar Maze. Once she had been translated, she would send faithful servants to extract him from whatever lair he had slithered into, and then he would dance before her. Having overseen books on anatomical torture which sat on Lashimi's shelves, there had been more than a few ideas which appealed to her. Scald him with hot irons, burn him with alchemical ointments, pull out nails and teeth. He would dance and sing, begging for mercy. There would be no mercy. He killed her, after all, promising his love and devotion. Lies. Were it not for the dearth sleep and her quasi-mortality, Demra would be worm food. Her reign nothing but a cosmic joke for all the ages to scorn. Zohar would be made to pay for that. Excellent, Admiral, said the Golden Woman. Now I wish for this ship to sail toward the mid-base of the pyramid's western side. There we will find an ingress near the waterline. Order your hardest men to board your dinghies. We must have a strong force going inside. The Admiral managed to light his pipe, even in the ocean wind, then turned to the mystical pair and asked, How many men, Great One, that I may call to my sister ships and have them offer whatever you desire? Lashimi's answer came without hesitation. 500 men, and I wish for a wall of ships to restrict access. No one is to enter without Empress Demra's permission. The Admiral bowed while saying, Aye, it will be as you say. Then he hobbled off toward the main deck, barking orders to his wind-burned crewmen, who carried them out without delay. You got whipped for defying a commander, could be keel-hauled for insubordination of an admiral. What would happen if you challenged an empress or defied a golden sorceress who commanded storms? None dared to entertain such curiosity. In less than an hour, everything had been carried out. Empress Demra and Lashimi climbed down the rope ladder to their landing craft, a small yacht, then set off for the pyramid's base. A mountain of shining metal loomed above them like something out of a fever dream. Brave men, all fierce and hardy fighters and seamen, wore looks of worry as they converged on the colossal base. Yet again, the Golden Woman had been correct. A large black doorway leading inside could be seen, and so they sailed for it. As the craft surrounded this mysterious entryway, Lashami addressed the Admiral. Her tone exhilarated as she explained the next phase of their plans. Marvelous. Admiral, the Empress and I shall be first inside, but we want your bravest, finest warriors to come with us. I expect no harm to come to anyone, but we must nevertheless be cautious in how we approach this matter. Whenever the gods are involved, mortals must needs tremble. The Admiral nodded his understanding, then blew a conch horn, calling for attention. Right, lads, we're going in. Lobby's ship, as well as Tom's, is first to disembark after us. The rest follow after. Move lively now. Lashimi climbed down off of the yacht, helping Empress Demra do likewise. They stood robed and hooded upon a rocky platform which protruded from the metallic facade, surveying this seemingly endless wall of glimmering metal reaching in both directions to either side. Wind howled loudly from the entrance, feeling as though an endless exhalation gust from a vast hollow within. Exhalation. Together they entered the enormity that was the Pyramid Zone's mythical namesake. Admiral Skolgankai sent guards in mass to protect them as per orders. The men strode with weapons drawn, shields at the ready, attentive for danger. Who knew what alien horrors might await in such a place? It was not long before they found an immense chamber featuring a fountain on one end and a spiral staircase leading upward on the other. The sound of water on stone was a sweet music to Demra's ears. Gone was the groaning, ominous wind, replaced by babbling fluid and scuffs from the jittery soldiers. You may drink from this fountain, Empress, but no other, not even me. This water is meant to fortify you for what lays ahead. You remember what I said about the awesome physical presence of the gods, how they make demands on mortals, just the same as you do for your underlings and subjects. There is little difference. Empress Demra wore a face of curiosity as she strolled around the fountain, gazing inside. Jewels crusted the fountain's base on the inside, some luminous, others glinting faintly. Lashami produced an obsidian goblet from one of her many bags, then drew some fountain water with it, handing the vessel to the Empress. Demra brought the rim to her lips, sniffing the sweet-smelling liquid. Its taste reminded her of what tea she was served as a child, sometimes used to help her sleep when insomnia drove her into exhaustion, somehow tasting of flowers. They collectively moved up the steps, finding the way dark before them. The golden woman ordered them to light brands and followed closely. They spun once, twice, and on the third span, a mysterious light greeted them near the top. Demra saw a gigantic female form passing in ghostly transparency before them as they reached the next level. Darkness parted before the torchlight, with sounds of scurrying sandaled feet scuffing the stone underfoot, all amplified by the main vault's stony acoustics. "Admiral," called Laishami. Admiral Skugankai hustled up to the golden woman with eyes wild and searching. "Aye, great lady, what is your bidding?" Demra felt eyes on her as she heard Laishami say, "Fetch kindling, wood, and oil. We must have a large fire here to dispel the gloom. Bring also supplies for feasting, drink, and all the baskets I gave special orders to be fetched. Once the ritual space has been laid out, we may start to invite captains first, then other of senior staff aboard the Armada to join us within. Invite those who are favored for their bravery. We wish no cravens to see the gods come forth. Divine beings loathe cowardice." The admiral bowed. "Aye, great lady, it shall be done." As he walked back with a detachment of warriors, Empress Demra once more beheld another kind of pale apparition slinking around, moving from one edge of the massive vault to another. A tall being, clad in white, loped in and out of the shadows, sometimes revealing, other times concealing. It must have been a hallucination or some kind of after effect of the alchemical compound she had been taking of late. She panned the vastness, peering into the eye-watering darkness for any sign of this phantom, finding nothing in the whole structure other than what seemed to be two tables set one next to another. Demra converged on those, finding them not to be tables, but altars of some kind, seemingly composed of crystal. Two large forms lay quiescent within, both too obscured by the crystal's geometric design to be recognized. They are two gods. One rests, the others stricken down during a squabble between them and other gods who have long ago departed. Demra felt the gentle touch of the golden woman, whose hands were a welcome fire upon her otherwise tense frame. Lost as she was in the vast, incomprehensible way forward. Were there truly gods sleeping in those rectangular boxes? Tables, chairs, and other articles of furniture were retrieved as per their orders, being set upon the stone along with ample wood and fuel for a fire. It did not take long for them to be seated and feasted, the chill driven from stone by fire thrice as tall as a person. Laishami pored over her books, apparently securing the spells in her mind for what came next. Admiral Skulgonkai began escorting captains from outside, requesting them to bring their own furniture for comfort if they wished to stay. Not everyone wanted to see such incredible things up close, and so some came and went, whereas others had never entered to begin with. That was fine, after all, evidencing that the admiral took her orders seriously. Empress Demra sat, drank, and ate, taking time to smoke, and apply snuff whenever she felt it necessary. Her mind wandered as crowds gathered, slowly seeping in from outside, their faces grim or mystified or otherwise preoccupied by fathomless introspection. Some regarded her with approving smiles, wishing to sponge off of whatever came from her apotheosis. Dem returned from them, gazing up into firelight regions of the uppermost vault. Statues, busts, and beautiful wall murals covered every facade. At some point, the golden woman began chanting in a language unknown to the Empress, singing in tones both haunting and ominous. She turned her gaze away from the ritual, feeling suddenly chilled despite the thorough heat from the fire. Inside the flames, she could swear that a tall, pale woman regarded her, dancing, smiling in a way which stole all calm from Empress Demra. Peace slowly retreated from her, even as the gathering throng in eminent ritual declared a point of no return. With heart racing and breath gone ragged, she clenched her eyes and waited for whatever came next, fearing as much as hoping that all Aishami said would come true. End chapter.
That's fucking dynamite, bro.
Yeah, very good. Your reading makes it feel like Sword and Sorcery crossed with The Lighthouse for me. If you've seen that movie.
I don't know if I had seen. Is that story about those? I think they're Scots who all died or something.
It's a movie.
I'm guessing. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson manning a lighthouse for, I don't know, a month or two or something. I don't know. They're on an island.
They go slowly mad.
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
totally watch it.
I will. I've been meaning to, because I think it's based on a true story, believe it or not.
Partially, yeah.
I researched it years ago because there's something about fire watches and lighthouses where people see all sorts of strange things. Thank you for your attentive words. You honor me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you do.
Any questions about process or world building are totally welcome.
So that's the B plot of your story, because you could easily make that an A plot at any point in time, especially that whole ritual section where it's like this whole. I mean, I was kind of entranced going into that. I was like, damn, I don't even care how this person knows about this. I just want to know why this is all coming to be this point.
Yeah, so I have this collective galaxy that I write in, and there's just these giant mountain-sized pyramids that are scattered all over this one quadrant that belong to this ancient and seemingly defunct empire called the Unkarans, right? So I have a bunch of books with that. Like one on Amazon is the Zaoth Storm World. It features certain structures or suggestions of structures like that. Each world is in a various state of ruin or dislocation from an imperial oversight, possibly for hundreds of thousands of years. So things get real, backwood, and it's almost like a wilderness world. So this planet only has one pyramid on it. It's called Planet Corespan. The reason it's plotline B is because my main character, the name of the book, his name is Sir Warren Gates. He's what's called a gene spiller. He's a tank, basically, but getting into it a little bit deeper, he's a genetic construct that's designed for war and soldiery and combat. A living weapon, typical living weapon that would come from any bioindustrial singularity that was long manifest, which is the key to world building. We already have this thing in our world called CRISPR technology. Within the next 30 years, they're acting like they're going to be designing human beings. So project that, like all other singularities, project that hundreds of years into the future, like I do. And you have like gene wizards and like genetic scientists who can just grow original organisms for the purposes of designed industries. And you get all kinds of cool tweak stuff out of that. That's my narrative A. He has a hammer named Grum, which contains an elder god, what he calls a pan-dimensional entity named Oblythamon. And Oblythamon is like an evil piece of shit, like an irredeemable nightmare mind, trapped in this hammer by a pantheon of fey goddesses who couldn't deal with his crap anymore. They bound him and they threw down some of his brothers who were skulking behind him. And this story basically steeps you in a world of like that. There's this feature on Planet Corspan called the Corspan Chasm, which makes the Grand Canyon look like a wheel rut. It goes for like the length of Africa, and it goes all the way down into the mantle at some places. So there's radical weather, like what you would find in a volcano here and there, and there's all sorts of terrible organisms that have been spawning in there. So they got to get to the city of exiles to get this guy Zohar, which you heard mentioned in this chapter. He killed Empress Demra, and she should be dead, but she's a functionoid that's called a a quasi-mortal. So when they're alive for a long time, they go into what's called the dearth sleep. And when they're in the dearth sleep, their body regenerates, and they basically live forever, but they're only awake for certain amounts of time. And elsewise, they have to slumber and regenerate. It's some sort of
like a demigod almost.
Yeah, in a way. Originally, it was all meant as a natural stasis for deep space travel. So they're there in that pyramid in plotline B to see these gods resurrected, because this golden sorceress is this terrible cultist, and she doesn't care what happens. She just wants power. So there's a bunch of tension there. And the main plot line has to go and find her and eliminate her, because the Rainbow City, which is the oversight from off-world, it's a city with 10 portals leading to different planets, and it broadcasts this rainbow energy, which invigorates the local populace, and everybody's like on their side because of this ambient field of bliss. They've ordered that Demra be slain. So those are some details as to why it's plotline B. It's setting up something tasty down the line for our main heroes in plotline A to encounter. So that's what that is.
Yeah, that's sick, bro. It reminds me a lot of, especially those politics. It reminds me a lot of like Warhammer 40K deep lore type of stuff, where it's like, why are the Necrons, and how did this happen, and how is chaos energy, like how does it integrate, and the Emperor, and is he dead, is he alive, and then there's all this other shit, and then they make it all kind of like fit together in this spectrum, and so that's pretty solid, man. It definitely gripped me for a good minute.
Deep lore.
Yeah, now I'm going to tell you guys, it's real quick. I know I've been blabbering here, but I'm going to tell you guys real quick how you do this. Anybody that listens, sit down and take some notes. Draw a map. That's the most important lesson. Draw a map. Draw a map of the planet that your world takes place on. Take a piece of graph paper or some software, whatever you're more comfortable with, and sketch this thing out. Make a polar line, an axis, and make a equator, and draw your continents wherever you want, really, but where you want. You need different climates. You need polar climates, temperate. You need like some deserts. You need some equatorial climates. You need an array of things, because what that does is when you study planetology and geology and all that other stuff, climatology, you get a sense of how worlds work. They're spinning and they're breathing. The air and the weather is moving over them, and cultures revolve around climate, especially if we're dealing with retro industrial periods where they don't have like AC and stuff. They all are affected by that. So that's how you design your worlds. That's how you get this rich, vibrant. And I know it's like, well, Ricky, wow, you're a little full of yourself. This has nothing to do with ego. Okay, I'm saying this because I mean, you may not like the way I write, you may not like the voice, but the obsession is clear in the text. It's clear. The results are present. You know.
I mean, you didn't call it Planet Ricky, so ego doesn't necessarily come into it for me, bro. But yeah, I feel that. I feel that a lot. It's I'm a huge Civilization player, so it's one of those things that you find a river on a generated fucking map, you stick to the fucking river. Why? Because all your yields according to that river are going to be that much better. You find a coastline, well, fuck, man, you just got trade. Trade is going to happen for you, especially if you're early to that shit. So yeah, I mean, and then you look at history, and it's like, yeah, well, this whole civilization was basically because these nomads decided to settle at this really, really awesome spot. And then, they built pyramids. It happened to call it the Nile later on. It's like, oh, yeah, it's all because of that fucking water, or, biomes and shit. It's very important to developing like civilizations and characters. And I think like it's similar to like when Michael writes about Tartaria, he focuses on mineral and how that like whole thing kind of is a really big piece of their culture and their science. And it would make sense because you go to all like the mineral civilizations that have existed that basically found a way to use a mineral so exponentially more than everybody else, and it fucking drove a different part of their civilization in a way that no other was. It's kind of like the dwarves and fucking in other lore. It's like they were miners. So what happened? You need metal? You got to go to these motherfuckers, these little guys over here. So that's positive.
Yeah, no, you are farsighted. Whenever there's water, there's trade, especially in retro industrial states without airports. But no, that's a very good point, and that's another thing besides planetology is the nature of world building through cultures. This event, this cataclysm, this war, this plague, it shapes history, and as does the environment. That's well put. That's another thing to look toward. Once you have the world, you establish trade routes based on the convenience of the landscape or the seascape. If there's storm lanes, if there's narrow passes that are haunted or filled with brigands, that's what your characters are going to experience. I can't tell you how many times I've heard on social media, I don't know what to write. What do I write? Well, draw a map, my friends. Draw a map, and you'll know what to write very quickly.
Yeah, one of my favorite DMs is like he was always map building, and it was like what always yielded the best campaigns was when the DM would come in with a map where you knew some shit was about to go down, and that was always the clue. It was like, oh, friggin' Adam just came in with a fucking map. That's it. This is gonna be lit. Get ready for fucking bullshit. Let's go.
Yes. I also was a dungeon master. I played my homebrew game called Avternity, which is not published, but basically ready to be published after long, arduous years of work and playtest and fun. That's part of my Avternity property, which is what I'm trying to sell. I'm writing this Wargate because I'm trying to kill my darlings, as the great and wise MJ Huntsgood said. She said, "Kill your darlings," and what that means is, I can't sell the partnership willy nilly, the Avternal partnership, because I got a lot invested. There's like 4 or 5 novels. There's a whole RPG, rule book, campaign book. So I can't just sell that willy-nilly to someone who doesn't recognize not only its integrity, but the effort and the passion that I've invested behind it, because it's like hundreds of thousands of words, man, and years. So I can't just go, here you go, like I'm handing them a McDonald's cheeseburger. That's just, it's not appropriate. So the Wargate thing, this book I'm writing, which I'm almost halfway through, is meant to get my foot in the door. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Gonzalo, you just came up. You're hanging out.
So how you guys doing? I got my space was meant to start like, what is it, 4 hours now? Yeah, 4 hours ago. And I got in so late from the hospital that I had to do a bunch of stuff. I had to push it back twice and then start late. I ended up starting like, what is it, an hour and a half ago. And then when your space started, I was just on a roll. I couldn't stop, so I just kept going, and but I had to come in at least to get the last part of the space in, because this is only on every 2 weeks, and couldn't miss Michael's space. How you guys been doing? What have you been talking about?
Ricky did a reading of a new chapter. So I think you kind of came in at right after that. Yeah.
Right again.
Well, that's okay, because it'll be on the recording. So, in a week and a half, you'll be able to listen to
it. Cool.
It was a good reading. I'm usually not I haven't done much reading in a long time, but that shit was great. And I don't know if it's maybe just hanging out with Michael too much, but like pyramids, empresses, ships, and like I'm like, yeah, let's fucking do this shit.
Yeah, I love geeking out about this stuff. I'm sorry I missed it. I'll catch it on the recording when it comes out.
But what are you working on, bro? What was? Because I saw your comment and I was like, oh, I wonder what he's fired up about.
Yeah, I've started doing. I'm doing. Where should I start? So the thing that I was doing right now was I was hosting my own space that I've started doing. It's this type of space where we sit down quietly and write, basically. But I'm using it selfishly to work on my script. I'm writing a sci-fi thriller manga, and it's a project that got about 70% funded. So I actually have some funding from sponsors and wonderful people from X and from IRL who have supported the project. So it's a thing that I actually have to get done now. So that's what I've been working on. I'm shooting to finish the script this month, and I'm happy to say I'm on page 9 now. Like I've been doing this for 2.5 days, 3 days, and today's Wednesday, right? Third day. And I'm already on page 9. So I've been making excellent strides, much more than what I usually get done just by sitting down and working by myself. That's why I keep doing it. That's why I'm going to keep doing it tomorrow. I just basically, turn on some music, welcome everyone, set up a little welcome message for anyone who wanders in, and we just sit down and write whatever you're working on. And that's what I was doing. And today I started super late. I started like half an hour before Michael's space was supposed to start. And I felt really bad, but this is like the only time that I can actually sit down and write. Any other time that I go, all right, I'm going to write, something always comes up. And unless I don't feel someone else's presence working alongside me, it's much harder. So this has been really effective in getting stuff done and getting work done, especially writing. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, we used to do those kind of spaces way back when for AI art and stuff, where we used to, because it used to be it was a different process in the beginning. Like it was a lot of sitting there and tweaking settings until you got, something right. And then when you did, you're just kind of sitting there editing the one you just did in Photoshop while the other one ran for the next, 8-12 hours to generate and do what it needed to do. So I miss those spaces so much. And so I definitely see where the power is of that, because I used to get so much like editing done in Photoshop just like knowing other people were there. And then every once in a while you get a good question like, hey, what does this tool do? And how do I use it to like remove this? And it was so fucking awesome. So appreciate that you're doing that shit, because that helps a lot of different creatives, not just yourself.
Yeah, there have been people Thanks. There have been people coming in doing other stuff like animating. I actually ran into one of those spaces once where it was also a writing space, but I was working on a little mini comic, and I said, "Hey, is it cool if I'm?" And I didn't even I knew that it would be okay, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm working on a drawing. I'm actually drawing, but technically it's a drawing. It's a mini comic that I wrote, so I guess it counts." And they laughed about it, and they said, "Yeah, of course." So now I'm hosting my own, and it really is it's kind of like one of the classic ADHD strategies to get work done is called body doubling. And this is really, really close to body doubling, because you feel someone's there. Even like I could cheat, I could go and do other stuff. I could be doing other stuff, but I really want to get this done. So I use that as kind of an excuse that, kind of like you feel someone. It's like when you're in a co-working space or in an office, if someone's sitting next to you and they can see your monitor and you're both working, you're very, you're much less likely to start goofing off and getting distracted and doing other stuff. You feel their presence kind of reminds you to keep going. So it's been really great. And I'm going to keep doing it at least this month until I get the script done. We'll see after that.
What's your target page count?
It was 20 pages, but you know what? I'm up to page 9 and the attack hasn't started. So I don't know. Salvador's just starting to wake up. He's like saying hello and stuff. And I'm on page 9. So I don't know. Just because I want to flesh out the villains too a little bit, the attackers. I want to show where they're coming from, how are they, feeling and stuff. It's a little more I want to make it a little more complete. So I'm going to try to tighten it up as much as I can. I'm going to go with the flow for now, and then I'm going to go back over it and just like go through page by page, line by line, and see what can be taken out, what really needs to be there, and what we can do without, and see how that goes. It was going to be 20 pages, but I don't know. Maybe 30, maybe 40, but that gets expensive quick because it's a manga. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like make it as many pages as it needs to be, but at the same time, like if you're doing a physical print, then yeah, that'll be a little heavy.
I do want to do physical print eventually. Yeah. I mean, I want to make it as tight as it can be. Like, I don't want anything to be there for just filler, but I also don't want it to feel rushed. I want it to feel, fleshed out and complete. So I'm figuring that out still.
Have you pursued an industrial overview? And what I mean by that is this a single issue? Is this a big graphic novel? Because depending on what it is that you're trying to sell, that's sort of like how much space you have to play with by industry standards. So I always do like a word budget for a whole project to see like how am I selling, what am I selling, etc. So I don't know if that's part of your calculus here.
Sort of. Like as far as the story, I've already worked out a general structure for the entire story, and it's going to be several parts to it. This is the first part of like probably 8 or 10 parts. So it's going to end up being more like a graphic novel than a comic, or actually I should say more like a graphic novel than a manga, because I'm doing it in that style. I'm looking at my copy of Pluto, one of the books of Pluto. I'm trying to see if I can find the page count here, because Pluto is an 8-part. It's an 8-part collection, but each individual book is really thin. I mean, thick. I mean, 173 pages. More than 173, because the last act starts at page 173. So it's a lot of pages. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just telling the story. Right now, I'm focusing on telling the story the way it needs to be told. And if it ends up shorter than this is probably not an industry standard, because Pluto is like one of the big ones. and I'll see how I'll figure it out as I go, I guess. But this is part one of a bigger series. Basically, it's like issue one. So the attack at the lab, when he comes online, there's an attack, and there's a fire, people die, and then he escapes. That's it. And then then it's going to be like a whole arc. It's a thriller, so there's going to be a whole thing where at the end he has to face off with the villain, and the world almost ends and all that wonderful stuff. So it's a whole thing. There's a lot of ground to cover.
Oh yeah. I also think that kind of industry standard breaking is a very good thing to do when it's done authentically. I've always I had somebody give me shit about about my screenplay once because I have 4 acts, and they were like, "Well, you can't really do that." I was like, "Read the fucking thing; it's there." I made the 4th act; it happened, and and they were like, "Well, it's not exactly," and they tried to pick it apart. I was like, "You could fit it into whatever bucket you got." But there's 4 acts there. If you look at it from 2 different directions, you could say that this is an extended third, or you could say that there's 4 acts. Either which way, does it work or does it not? And that's always something I feel very passionately about. I get really upset when people are putting down other people for that shit. So go for it, man. Fucking go for it.
You know what? As long as the story, as you're reading it page by page or watching the finished movie minute by minute, the main thing it has to do is get you to want to see the next page. You have to get to the end of the page and want to turn the page. And at the end, when there are no more pages, you have to go, wow, that was cool. That's it. There are no buckets to have to fill. Now, most of the stories that do that, the reason there's 3 acts, 4 acts, is because most stories that do that make you go, holy shit, what a great story, do fit into, there's this pattern recognition of, 3 acts. But there's also a 4-act structure that's very well known, where basically you're breaking up Act 2 into 2 parts. So, as long as the story is interesting along the way and makes you want to keep turning pages, just go with it, We're all natural born storytellers. What's that? I didn't catch that.
Oh yeah, you were feeding back into Ricky's mic is what happened.
Oh, that was me. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know that acts matter per se. I have my own methods of achieving my pace. I have a pace design that revolves around 2 major factors. One of them is a 3-act continuum, which is 3-act series, 3-act book, 3-act chapter, 3-act plot point. So there's always this wave or ripple of 1, 2, 3 going through all. I have my reasons for that. It doesn't it could be 6 acts. It could be lots of different acts. It doesn't really matter so long as you are focusing on some sort of pace design, because that's really what gets you through, like Gonzalo's saying, as far as page turning, not to squat or meander or to unless that's what you're doing. But again, we're talking about access here. And I don't mean in a corporate sense, God forbid. What I'm saying is what kind of audience do you want? What's your demography, and who do you want to be reading this stuff? Do you know who you're aiming at? Things like that.
And also, Ricky, if you're there's even if you guys are familiar with the arc plot, the mini plot and the anti plot, even a structure that has a story that has no structure, that just goes all over the place in order to just express a message, that's called anti-plot, and it has no structure at all. Now, Monty Python did that. A bunch of people, really well known directors did that. It's not your typical, Hollywood blockbuster popcorn movie, but it's there. And people write them, and no one says, "Oh, you can't do that." Actually, a bunch of people probably do, but the movies still get made, the books still get written. It doesn't matter. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I love weird, and I love on like counter orthodoxy. I don't suggest by any means that there's only one way to skin a cat, but what I am saying is, like, like you said, you admitted, it's like if it's unorthodox, the audience, the readers will be unorthodox, and there's nothing wrong with writing that way. I'm see one of the problems. The reason that I speak as if I have some sort of authority is I'm writing a book about writing process. So all of these methods are meant for instruction at some point. So I'm not speaking like I know. I'm speaking like I believe, and I'm trying to help people. You dig? Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I however you do what you do, like, good. Like, go for it. You know?
Yeah. Agreed.
There's a lot of value to that. I think also even as structuralist as you can be, there's the whole, like, they're comparing it to a structure. So it's like, oh, this is structuralist. It's like, well, you're only doing that because you're comparing it to structure. But it's sometimes, and there's so many things like this in nature and masonry, and there's sometimes things yield their own structure just because of the nature of the thing. It's like Monty Python, like the Holy Grail. It has almost no point to that actual fucking story. But then you get to the end of that story and you're like, oh, that was a good journey. And you've literally gone nowhere. The whole fucking thing just literally went nowhere. Like Waiting for Godot is another really good prospect, because it's just there's almost no progression. But the whole thing of that experience is all about taking pieces from it. And it works. It's kind of like, I guess, how philosophies, like in total, is written, or religions and this and that. And they don't really have a plot. They rather shouldn't, because it's not supposed to feel fictional. But, it's that whole thing of, like, this is supposed to be taken allegories, anecdotally, and all this other stuff. And I think that has a lot of play in structure for, like, books and stories.
It's funny you mentioned Waiting for Godot, because I haven't seen it. I guess as a student of film, film school, I should have seen it at some point. But I did read.
I don't think.
Is it a book? I don't know. I thought it was a movie. And the thing is,
well, it's a play, and it's a play, and that's it. It's in the book form or in whatever form. You can only read it as a play, really.
Okay, well, like I always say, story is a story, right? The thing is, I was reading Robert McKee's book on story, and he mentions that, and I think the point of Waiting for Godot is that there is no point in waiting for Godot, because Godot is God. I think it was. I think that's the message, right? If you're waiting for God, just don't, you better find a comfortable chair to wait in, because there's no point. Life is random, and that's why the story is random, and that's the message. It doesn't have to have it's not about the structure. It's about what you're trying to say to the world.
Oh yeah, and I think Beckett wrote it as a play to be very specifically odd, because it's one of those things. It's when it's done as a play, because I got to see Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart do that. It is very interesting when you see a Shakespearean actor take that on, because they treat it like they treat Shaw and Shakespeare, and they treat it in that sense. And Shaw is a lot more contemporary than Shakespeare, so they kind of blend these two. When you have a master like actor who doing any of those roles, there's this like nuance there of that, existential dread of like waiting for the end. And there's this whole thing about, like, do you bring the end to you, or do you wait for the end? And when you get to the end of that story, it's like, what did I just do? And, then you look at the title and that you waited for Godot, just like, Didi and the other guy in the story. So it's it's definitely a good exercise for people who classically troll, like that's what I love about like really obscure writers, is they classically troll the fucking world. That's why I love Gonzo and, all those type of writings, because it's just trolling everybody who doesn't understand it. And the point is to not understand it. So it is like that's what I mean. That structuralist thing, and what sorry, I forgot what the name was, but Mount Tim over there. Like that whole situation of your readers are going to be that group that reads this and enjoys it. Like you're playing to them as much as you're trying to get the normies to just go, what the fuck did I just read? You know? So I think there's good point to that. And that's why anytime something feels weird, especially because I'm just a filmmaker, anytime somebody's like writing something, it's like, oh, this feels weird. I'm like, go with that. That's the best stuff. That's the stuff that really gets good.
Well, there's plenty of opportunity for weird in structure. My rule is no matter what the budget I'm writing, every sentence is a poem. You know, every scene is a vision. We're trying to create timelessness as a ladder to transcendence. You know, you can't achieve genius yourself. Someone else has got to tell you that that's what you are. But you can reach for transcendence in the attempt. And that's what I'm doing. By the way, I've read all of Thompson, all of it. Hell, from Rum Diary, Hell's Angels, all the Fear and Loathings, is some of his letters. He's a genius. Okay, Bukowski. I mean, it goes on and on. I've been swimming in words for forever now. So.
Hell yeah. I always have the Great Shark Hunt on my shelf that I have. There's like 2 books that I keep in close proximity. And one of them is The Great Shark Hunt, and the other one is This Is How by Augustine Burroughs, which I feel like is one of the best books about like personal philosophy and like life philosophy and stuff. It got me through some shit. So it's one of those things that like The Great Shark Hunt, I read it like a religious book. Because I think about things. I think about times in my life where I just needed a distraction. When OJ died, I read through the section that he talks about meeting him. And like, there's just so many things to pull from his work like that, that I'm so glad that there's a compendium. It's like that was almost life-saving in itself. It's like, these could just be everywhere. You could go find Rolling Stone articles and shit. But no, it's in one book, and it's so fucking good to have that. It's fantastic.
So is that your favorite of his? Because I don't run into Thompson fans nearly as often as I'd like. In other words, what is your favorite of his novels? I'd love to know. Oh,
Fear and Loathing for sure. Just because I really just love everything about what he was how he put that whole thing together. Because it started for me with the movie, and then Criterion came out with their special edition, and I knew it was a book, but I was like, whatever, book to movie. I usually just watch the movie. But then I watched the Criterion collection where he made his own movie around not far from the time he wrote the book. And I was like, oh my God, there is so much on the table that I left by not reading the fucking book. And it was just like, it's been my journey with him. And it kind of started with that, like Rum Diaries. And I think it's a great piece. It's a lot of stuff that I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's all wrapped up in a lot of different things he was going through at the time that I think there's almost too personal of a story there. But then, everything else in it is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, without a doubt, Fear and Loathing. But The Great Shark Hunt, I only keep it because it's an amalgamation of so many stories. And there is one, like every time somebody's like, well, why would I buy that book? I was like, there is a chapter where he discusses in detail him covering, I think it's the 76 Super Bowl. And he describes a scene in which he is so fucking tripping that he thinks there's a slug that is trying to eat his brain, climbing up his back as he's screaming scripture from the top floor of a Holiday Inn or wherever the fuck he was, and he's yelling it at the people below, and he's holding like a book and a bottle of something, and he's just screaming about this. And I was like, if you could get that story alone, that's the one that I'd say start there and then work your way out. Because there's just so many different prospects of that book that are just great to like see this overall body of work that is the reason why he's he. in a lot of ways. But yeah, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I can't. That's a book that I don't keep it in close proximity just because it's like I know it. I don't need to. I actually gave my copy to somebody. But yeah, that's the tops for me.
I would have to say that mine is Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72. And there's a collection also called Fear and Loathing in Rolling Stone, which is like it's articles and letters, like correspondences between him and Jan Winter, and that it's just amazing what you're dealing with, him covering the presidential election during all that stuff with Nixon and whatever. It's like, it's incredibly dramatic and like hilarious, basically. Like the voice of this guy is just as timeless as it comes, man. So I dig it. Yeah.
Yeah, the when he talks about how he started the rumor on the Ibogaine that Nixon was taking Ibogaine, I was like, this is a great, because it feels like an actual. You feel like you're being told a secret, but it's in a book. This is widely fucking distributed. But it's like you read the story, and you're like, how did nobody like arrest you right after this happened? Like, I don't know how you made it through it. And then you just look at his life, and that's just the way he rolled. He just rolled through all this shit and was able to be him. And that's what I think is like thing about writers, what we're talking about, who break structure and do that type of stuff. A lot of them kind of have their own way, and just that's what comes through in the writing. And it can be so freeing to a lot of us. I always felt this way. Like I always felt so free, because as much as I'm an uncouth kind of person, I also I have my limitations. And then to watch this insanity, and you know it's true because pieces of your uncouthness are in there too, but they go way further. And it's, it's so cool to like watch him play that way.
Yeah, and I dig on what you're saying for the level of truth and the what do you call it, the authenticity. But as a journalist, I mean, he was chained to structure. They ordered word budgets from him. Like when you appear in a classic periodical, they want like 500 words, 1,000 words. Like he always wrote to budget, resentfully, I'm assuming. But he had to write for a budget. Otherwise, they'd just chop it all up anyway. That's the thing that journalism teaches you that other forms of writing and whatever really don't. Too much poetry, too much flowers, and people just wander off. But if it's paced within, well, we want a 500-word thing for this type of person sitting on a bus or a plane reading this thing. Like the internet kind of like cut all that away because you don't have to worry about hard copies. So it is kind of like sort of like rippling back in the other direction these days. But I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you, Chris, because he was a true writer, a master, and just by all the people he even ran into. I mean, he knew Allen Ginsberg, he knew William Burroughs, he knew Ken Kesey. I mean, it's like, wow, like this guy was brushing up against all this talent too. So he's something else.
I'm going to jump on some of these points that you guys were talking about, because I think that that's part of the value of self-publishing, in that you can structure things and you can say whatever you want with print on demand or an ebook. God knows I have been very structure free, or allowed myself to do the things that I wanted to do with those pieces. And I think that publishing on the web is definitely along that trajectory, but maybe it kind of diverges, because you have, say you are doing a paperback, well, you can really only put words and pictures in there. But if you're on the web, you can do music and sound. If you have an ebook, you can do, music, sound, video, all these different components into that release. Again, like an audiobook will do some of those things as well. I think it is important to explore all those different versions of a story or whatever it is, going back to what you were talking about, like he was making a film kind of on the heels of putting out the book. That's not to say too that like we as self-publishing writers or authors or creatives don't have to be concerned with budget. Like if you're putting something out on KDP and you want to do it as a paperback, like you have to be concerned with like print cost because of paper and imagery. There's like a baseline cost for any book that you kind of want to get over that threshold. If you don't care about profiting off of it, well then, that's fine. You can do whatever you want. But the same thing goes for the data rates for ebooks. If you can keep your data rate down, then you can either make the book cheaper or increase your profit margin on that kind of stuff. In that way, a lot of the economics of traditional printing and journalism, they haven't gone away. They've just become more personal, and we have to be individually concerned with them in addition to actually the creative craft of words and storytelling and stuff like that as well. The economics of attention in that sense. But
for sure,
in the meantime, we've been going. I know the session kind of started a little bit late with people hanging out and stuff, but we have been going for over an hour. If there are any final thoughts that you guys would like to offer up or promote, I know, Ricky's got a space tomorrow. I think Rachel does as well. Gonzalo has been doing these sprint sessions, so keep an eye out for him as well. If you're looking for some quiet time to work on something and make some progress and hold yourself accountable, that is an opportunity. I put up a post for some of the remaining sessions for this week. I will get a new flyer out next week for the remainder of the month, I believe. And we'll see what's on there. I will check in with our writing cabal as it is to see what needs to go on the new version. But again, any closing thoughts, pieces you guys want to promote, anything along those lines, now is your chance.
I just say thank you for everybody who came to stage. It was a really awesome session. Thank you for the reading, Ricky. That was fucking sick as fuck. Thank you for letting us into that world a little bit. Definitely got my fucking brain cooking.
Thank you very much. You honor me. To honor me further, I have some books on Amazon. Azaoth and Nidhogg. The links for those are on my profile if you go up to my bio or whatever that's supposed to be. And otherwise, just seek me out, type my name in. I would appreciate that. They're of similar nature, different genres and paradigms, but similar nature to the voices that you've heard. Thanks a lot for hosting this, you guys. This has been great.
Yeah, same goes all the time. Whenever we're here, we'll be back in 2 weeks, but tweet out your projects, let people know, and then you can put them into the nest when you're here, or put some comments onto the pill. That way people can find that stuff. Again, next week I will be hosting Writer's Block. Heidi will be there obviously as well, but we're going to be changing things up a little bit. We've been kind of making a schedule for the next 2 months, starting with 2 weeks ago. So we've got some cool stuff we're going to play around with, and look forward to unveiling some of those things in the near term. As it is right now, I think the July Sumo Grand Tournament starts this Sunday. I'm not exactly sure, but you can check on your own on NHK World. It is broadcast in English and other channels around the globe 24 hours a day. That is for 15 days. Grand Sumo Tournament. You know we love it. We'll be watching daily. I will report back in as that presents results for us to celebrate and enjoy. For this week, thank you for hanging out, and we'll talk again before too long.